storage tank. The 27-23 for Hoyt's Truck Center was a transmission for Bob's small dump truck. It was unusual. Big garbage truck, we used all, Bob says it was 4 tires for 2 ratings, that was $2,481, which is somewhat unusual.
Any questions on that? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve appropriation ordinance 1255 as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion is second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The other, next item is proposed minutes of the last meeting. Which would find me.
Good.
Good? Francis? Okay, so those are approved as presented. Do we have anything to add to the agenda?
I just have a question about an item, Mr. Mayor. Under recreation, are we gonna talk about the ordinance as well at that time?
That was my plan, it's in the package and we have the input from the rec
I did.
advisory board.
It wasn't titled in there, I just wanna make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
We're gonna get feedback, I think Mark's probably gonna talk about that. Maybe, okay. So I don't think we need to add for that.
No, I don't think so.
Anything else? All right, well, let's proceed to our first item of business, recreation, in fact. What we can see is that the Recreation Advisory Board met, and they provided, Maureen put in the package, minutes from that meeting and their recommendations. So the chairman of the board is here. Would you like to speak to that, or do you just want us to? You don't have to, but if you'd like.
Well, maybe y'all haven't had a chance to read what Ben gave.
Yeah, we did.
But,
Do you want to come up, or?
oh,
Please, yes, sir. I have not given my public service announcement. We invite you to speak to the commission, but please, if you do, come up to the podium and give us your name and whether or not you're a resident of the city in particular.
ooh, the resident part might be a problem.
That's okay.
That's fine. We just want to know, so how seriously we have to take you, that's all.
Okay. So actually, I've been on the board a long time, even though I haven't lived in the city for
Okay,
30 years, but 2 sides of my property are the city.
okay.
That's not the point, huh?
That's not really,
Right. So yeah, we had a good meeting, and the results of that meeting are in your packet. It's a little variation from what we had discussed at the previous commission meeting. And
so could I just ask you, should we be looking at, there are 2 different things. There's sort of a summary with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets. The first of which says ideally we would avoid a temporary fix. But then there's also a full minute that Rocco wrote up. Are you looking at the minutes, or are you looking at the? I guess they're similar.
it says reg board minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I have.
that's the document that you're
Right.
driving from.
Mm-hmm.
So in our packet, guys, that's further down after the actual report.
Yep.
So it would seem that the summary is you would like to expand, you're recommending that we do expand the board with a commissioner and the director, but that, neither one of those people would be able to be the, chairman.
Right, correct.
And then there is a revised, ordinance in there, which seems to reflect that, where it says, so those are the previous pages. 6th member is a member of the commission. The member shall only vote to break a tie, which is an interesting, stipulation. And then the 7th member shall be the city recreation director, who is a voting member, but would not be the chair. Those seem to be there.
I think we thought we were fine tuning a little bit of the ordinance that y'all had
Well,
already presented.
that's what I'm reading from the ordinance, yes. So
Okay,
that stipulation, the stipulation about there not being the chairs is different, as I think is the voting, I can't remember for sure. All right, so is there anything else that you want us to consider before, I think probably any number of people want to comment on this. Or maybe we just want to
Nothing
stay
to
there.
add, but I am here to answer
Okay,
questions.
great. So maybe, any comments?
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
John,
Yeah,
you
I
want
mean,
me
I
to
had
start?
some ideas too, but I
Okay.
thought I'd let you guys go.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. So your bullet points here, it says, while there is, while there is value, it's the 4th bullet point, while there is value in having a commissioner on the advisory board should be able to fully function independently of the commission. So do you want him on the board, or do you not want him on the board? Do you want one of us on the board, or do we not need to be on the board? The way I read that is like, well, we kind of want somebody on the board, but we should be able to do this without having somebody on the board.
Which we have done for decades anyway.
Yes, I agree.
So
Was it even,
it became more appealing to have a board member, you guys, on our board so that things didn't get lost.
was it unanimous?
It was.
It was, okay, and, okay, so that's it for now.
So that things didn't get lost.
It's,
Let me ask this,
That
do you
was
think you
some-
could achieve that by having more frequent, attendance of, say, the chairman or someone at this meeting? That's the only thing, is there an easier way to do it?
well, that is another way to do it too. What you just said is what is in here, but I would think it would achieve the same thing.
Anything else, Troy?
So, I'm just reading the revisions that you made and some things, I still stick with my original feelings of the rec director being on the board, I'm all in favor of. I'm not in favor of, I wanna actually strip away that B, and then you have to do some rewording. Remove the city commissioner as part of it. I think you guys, the rec advisory board has been around for decades, and I think you guys should be able to do this job yourselves and come to us with ideas. Come to us with small ideas, come to us with grand ideas. Some we may be in favor of and be able to, say, yeah, we can afford it. Other things, we might not be able to afford it, and we'll tell you. So, yeah, I'm all for the rec board, rec director being on the board. The other thing is, if commissioners, up to 2 of us, want to attend your meetings, they're more than welcome to attend. They can voice their concerns, they can tell you what they think will fly and won't fly, their opinion. But, so I just don't think it's necessary that we have a city commissioner on the rec board. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
For me.
Well, I get, Francis, yes.
Whatever.
maybe I'll just, my sense is, the most important thing that we need is a, roadmap, a master plan, which we can then, and that could be done by by the rec advisory board. I would like to see that in consultation with a professional, as Francis recommended and we've talked about, an actual planner for these sorts of things. And then I think what we need, by whatever mechanism, is that master plan, and then we need to prioritize the master plan, and then we need to program through budgeting in order to meet the requirements of the master plan. I think that's what we really want. How we do that is, I think, what's at the root of all this. We start out by saying, why don't we change the membership of the board to make sure there's better connection? And I think that's good. But so we could either just do nothing and then ask that you show up to more of these meetings, which I know is a great pleasure for you, and stay in contact. We could take this as it's been drafted, we could revise it to remove the commissioner, or we could just do a committee of some type with the rec board as the center, but bring in other people along with a professional person and stand that up for the period of time necessary to develop a really solid master plan, which then we could,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, a question for you.
Yeah.
A master plan for the park.
for the whole recreation.
Okay,
It's not
right,
just the
and
park,
just-
yeah.
Okay, thank you, that was my
No, I
question.
mean, I think it needs to be a strategic
I agree,
review,
thank you.
which could, in fact, I don't want to bring up necessarily, include questions about the golf course, because that's a recreational area that is not, so I think, no, it's not just the park, it's recreational serve where this is.
Thank you.
Right.
That's what I would like to see, how we get, I don't think we have to change the board to get to that point,
Yes, I agree.
but I think it's smart. I mean, I think it's worth considering at least adding as we talked about last time, the rec director to the board, because it seems like that connection was stronger in the past. It'd be worth reading. Anyway, those were my thoughts.
I'll go. First of all, I appreciate the minutes. Whoever typed those up, that was helpful for me to just see structure, what you guys talking about.
I'll pass that on to Ben.
Yeah, I would like to see that more often. I think that could actually help some of the communication that we're looking for. I fully support the master plan idea. I'd like to see us work with a professional on that. I do think the rec board should have some sort of vision going to him for that. Which I think it sounds like you guys are at least have an idea on that. Fully in favor of the rec director being a part of the board, it's laid out. And I think between, more minutes like this, you guys having a vision and getting connected with a professional and the rec director actually being a part, those are three, I think, solid improvements to what I've seen over the last 4 years. So I would be in favor of doing that and no more
Yeah,
than that.
we are kind of, the master plan really is where we should be focusing now. The things that happen year after year, same thing, that's always the ongoing thing anyway, so. Plan is to get that master plan developed as soon as possible. Perhaps using some guidelines that we've had in the past where we've there were several, not just the K-State study, but there was one even before that. They're all in the file somewhere here.
Well, several of them are on the website,
Oh, okay.
under reports.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, seems like a long way around, and we're ending up kind of back where we started. The original idea of trying to improve the communication and effectiveness of some of the ideas for improving the park, and looking at getting together a larger holistic plan. It's been kind of what I've been after since bringing up the idea a few months ago. In our packet, we have a letter, it's not signed, I'm gonna assume it's from the rec board, it's from somebody on the rec board, it's addressed commissioners. It's the one that starts on Monday, 1/27/25. The rec advisory board met to discuss the ordinance and our joint work session. One of the bullet points says very clearly, we believe that a city commissioner actively participating in the advisory board provides knowledge, expertise, and context that is invaluable for efficient collaboration. I think that's a pretty clear statement to back up kind of the original idea of this. You know, having sat through all the discussion at the previous meeting, there's an idea that came up that maybe this is a temporary board. And, you know, the idea of having let's do a little subcommittee that specifically looks at an overall master plan seems to be a good idea as well. I think that has a lot of merit to it. So either way, I think there's a lot of ways to move forward. I have my preference, but I think if I could choose, it would be a temporary subcommittee specifically for the master plan. The second one would be the original ordinance. The third one would be the recommendation of the rec board. And I think if we don't put a commissioner on it, I think we are doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I don't believe that's a good path forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You mean on the rec advisory board? Not, or the committee, because it seems like we could staff the committee as we wanted to, you know, with the commissioner, so that temporary and then shift over.
Sure, we do it. It's temporary a couple different ways, but if we just simply let the rec board continue, and put the rec director on it, I don't see that changing anything. I don't think that's an effective option. So my first preference, once again, is a temporary subcommittee, so specifically look at a master plan. The second one would be our original ordinance. The third one would be the recommendation of the rec board as presented in the packet.
In terms of establishing a temporary committee, how?
So first of all, if the goal, if the concern is having the rec director at those meetings, doesn't have to be on that board. I mean, job descriptions can be updated and be part of the job. I mean, you don't have to make any changes to make that happen. If you want to have a say in the matter, then come on board. As far as the temporary committee, you each nominate people, put it together and give them a mission statement. I kind of hashed one out after the last meeting, and it would give them a time frame and beginning and end. Now, it could take longer to do the rec planning, the functions of the department than just the master plan for the park, which is what I had in mind. But you could just declare it. We could write up a resolution and form a committee and make it happen.
And that, we could staff that with,
You would nominate, each member would nominate one or two, or however you see fit.
could we bring in consultants? We could hire potentially some.
That would be unrelated. You'd want committee members, you would all appoint, and then you give them the opportunity to bring in a consultant to put on
Okay,
paper.
but I'm talking about the committee itself. Could we ask people who are sort of outside the entire rec advisory board structure?
It'd be anybody you want.
Okay, so
I mean, the rec board would be an obvious 5 people. I'm not sure how big you want it, but you can agree on some other people. I had suggested 2 commissioners, since there was, I thought that might make it more palatable, it might not. But you can point whoever you want to the committee, if that's the idea you want.
I think we should take some action. I like a hybrid solution. This is what I would propose. We establish, either tonight or at some point, I think probably need to think about it, a committee, a temporary
Ad hoc.
ad hoc committee, fine, specifically to come up with a strategic master plan for parks and recreation for the city. And I think it's reasonable to, put the rec director on the rec advisory board for kind of a steady state situation moving forward.
Which rec director? We have two of them.
It's a single position, is it not?
Yeah, but the previous, we had, two rec directors, co-rec directors, and then we moved forward with two different co-rec directors. One of the two could be on there.
Well, it's important because we don't have to have two votes, so yeah.
We wouldn't put two rec directors on the board, there'd be one representative,
Yeah,
and they would choose,
one position, that would be.
they would choose.
That seems like a good sort of hybrid solution that makes, I agree, you don't make any changes, and expect the same result, or different result. We changed the board a little bit. We have commissioners probably involved in the master plan project, which will make it very, from that point, I think once we can define that, then we're just trying to, the thing we haven't talked so much about is then, I think our role is we need to prioritize those improvements and start budgeting money for them. That's the part that we certainly haven't done. Anyway, that's what I would propose. I would like to, so I don't know exactly what, we would have to make a motion, I suppose, to, or we still could.
So what is it, you want to form an ad hoc committee, you'd have to, I'd draw it up in a resolution form.
Okay.
And you can look at it then.
That's what I would like to do, to maybe look at that in the next meeting, is that what you're saying? Or?
Well, I could draw it up and we can go over it, I haven't heard from, one commissioner.
Were you wanting to say something, Jeff?
I have a couple.
All right.
To say. I want to start back at the beginning when if this was first introduced. I certainly agree with the lack of movement in the rec department, which caused me to vote for the ordinance. I didn't realize the same night we were going to be passing ordinance that we were going to be electing a person, because this ordinance still needed to be amended because it wasn't correct. So I withheld my vote until it was fully amended. But it's also given me time to reflect a little bit more on the situation with the rec board, and it was nice because we were actually able to all sit down to see the rec board. And I just wanted to bring up a couple things that, from notes that I took, that the rec board had commented on. Ben, I wish he was here tonight. Why did you all leave on? Well, you guys all left right after the meeting too. You were supposed to stay. Yeah. No, but because there was a couple of questions that that I had for him, because he said there's a bunch of failed points in the system. Disconnect in communication. He said that there was no forcing function within the organization of the rec board, no insight to budget. Which, if that's the case, can't they come to a budget meeting? The disconnection in communication, when I'm reading through the notes here of your guys' minutes, I actually started laughing because I'm like, this is exactly what we were looking for. There's communication, and so I guess with this right here, with the notes and everything that they presented from the agenda and the discussion, what role would a commissioner play in this?
Well, you folks being on the higher
Because
level.
one, they said they needed a forcing function, okay? So you guys held a meeting, we didn't force you to do that, which was good. So having a commissioner on there,
So the purpose of the meeting was to try to get this resolution, or whatever you call it, get to the next step with that. How was the board going to be made up? That was the intention of the meeting, and that was all.
well, it sounded like, you guys solved the problem. There's communication now. You guys had a meeting. I don't think it's a
a bad idea that we have a work session once a year or something like that with because I think that was very informative. Mark, what you said too, I mean, you're the most tenured person on the board, and sounds like there was at one point a liaison between the rec board or advisory board and the city commission.
It was extensively the rec director who was the city employee.
So is that a change of
Well,
position? I mean, was that person just
I think it
going
came
above and
down,
beyond what they were supposed to, or?
well, so when I arrived here, we had a rec director that was showing up to meetings as team leader, and then that changed to Joe Thomas, and then after Joe left, I think Chris Erlin or something, and they just, we looked through the code, and he wanted to know what the responsibilities of each were, and we found the code, and that's what we started doing. And I'm happy if the rec director wants to meet, but as far as being the spokesperson for the rec board, that's probably not an appropriate thing for the director. But, you know, if you need them at meetings for certain things, that can happen. But the board needs to have its own representative. But
It looks like the rec directors were present at this meeting, correct?
most recently,
Yeah,
Yes,
so I
one
mean,
last week.
Basically, this is these are notes from a meeting with the board, essentially in the form that what I just talked about.
That's
It's the
correct.
rec advisory board plus the rec
It
director.
was, right, the board members.
It's a good
plus-
product. It has established communication.
Sounds like we're solving the
That
problem
sounds
with
good.
it.
But
And
this
then if
is
we
the
add
board.
that, but what we don't, but if we add that temporary ad hoc committee to give us something substantive to track from, that will give you clear substance to work with in terms of this is where we are on the list, this is what we need from you, et cetera.
So that'd be something you would write up?
well, I'm back to, if you want the rec directors at the meetings, job descriptions can be changed, and they're not be voting members. They'll be there to participate, much like I do on planning commission meetings, and here, by the way. If you want them on the board, they can be on the board. I added it when we were proposing to change it, because there'd been talk about it, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to put them on there. I think I may have lost my train of thought there, but if you want them there, we can do it either way.
I was under the impression that it was part of their job to be at those meetings. I never questioned it, because they weren't always there.
So
Yeah,
you
I think
also-
I think this is exactly the point of why it was good to have that meeting with everybody, because no one was on the same page. And I don't see why that's not, I think it's a good thing that all the commissioners got to see that as well, to have a better understanding of that.
And I think it could be something you could expect, but I do believe that you always met on Sunday nights, and that isn't the best time for public meetings necessarily, although I don't think it's unlawful, I just don't know how appropriate it is for, you know.
You also, Mark, I think in the past, you've dealt with some very, very passionate rec directors. Passionate in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, the CC McIntyres of the world too. I mean, she wanted to get things done for parks and rec, for not only kids, but adults, everybody in the city of St. Louis. She really was passionate about it. And I'm not trying to degrade the current rec directors, but I think in the past, the rec board and the rec director were much more passionate about it. And then I think it appears to me, in my opinion, that over the years, it's kind of waned. That passion and that drive and that desire has waned. And that's unfortunate. And if, so, to kind of go into what you're suggesting, Mr. Mayor, we come up with this temporary, committee. They light a fire, and then when that fire goes out, what do we do then? We do it again? I mean,
Because I would say, once we have a plan that we are fully aware of, then we need to pressurize the system, then we pressurize the system.
I think we
We'll
do.
have something. to
I
track.
think from knowing the people on the rec board as I do, some I know well, my personal opinion is that they're more than capable of coming up with a master plan or working with the city manager to come up with a master plan. I don't think the committee is necessary at all.
City staff, Bob included.
City staff, thank you. Sorry, Maurice, I didn't mean.
No.
Yeah, I think they're more than capable of, I mean, if they put together this presentation they put together is very, I was very pleased, very impressed by it. If they can do that, I think they can come up with a master plan without us adding another committee to that. Thank you.
All right, well, we need to take some actions, I think. The two questions that we have before us are, I think, what are we gonna do with the ordinance? Which we've already passed. And then the second question is, are we going to establish a temporary committee to deal with specifically to focus on developing a master plan? Clearly with the idea they would consult outside. But I think those are our two decisions. So can we take them one at a time? The ordinance.
Well, I believe, Mr. Mayor, the ordinance, even though we've already passed it, which you stated a couple times now, we do have the ability to amend it.
Right, so that's
So
the
that's
question.
what I would like
What
to
do
do.
we
I'd like
want
to-
to do with it?
I'd like to remove anything in the ordinance regarding a city commissioner being on the Parks and
Right,
Rec.
so to be very clear, I think the points are we keeping the city commissioner and the rec director? Are we keeping just the rec director and not the city commissioner? Or are we not changing the board? Those are the three basic options.
Number two.
Number two,
You're number two.
remove the
City commissioner, keep the
but
rec.
keep the rec
That's
director.
that's what I'd like.
Chuck,
I second that.
well, it's not a
Oh,
motion.
oh,
Not a motion.
sorry, I thought
But
that was-
I get the second. You like that option? You like the original option, or you're amenable to?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I've gone through a lot of projects. I think we're just gonna come back fairly soon and revisit this. And that's okay though, if we wanna just keep doing what we're currently doing and expecting different results, which I think appears to be the plan, so be it. But no, I'm not in favor of that. I think it's a completely ineffective path forward. And I think there's a lack of understanding of the situation. It's, what the discussion is really, you have a rec board, and as the rec board clearly stated, they mainly kind of meet to advise on the current situation and kind of little adjustments here and there. But I think the next need, which has been acknowledged, is more of a step back, a bigger reset, if you will, of the plan moving forward. And that is, I believe, beyond what the rec board is set up to do. And it requires a little bit of a different approach. So that's kind of why I think we need a different approach. And I think the rec board said it very clearly, and I'll read it again. We believe that a city commissioner actively participating in the advisory board provides knowledge, expertise, and context that is invaluable for efficient collaboration. That was their recommendation. And I think they understand what their role is as a rec board. They understand how effective they can be. And that's what they said. So with all that, whatever will happen, will happen. We'll just move forward and adjust as needed. But I go back to my same position. We have to take the next step very seriously. It is a big step, I believe, which is a long-term reset as far as how we're looking at Parks Rec, what's the plan moving forward. That's a big project. And if we don't do something different to address that seriously, nothing will happen.
Which is why I think that we shouldn't do one without the other. So I'm not opposed to amending the ordinance for the, to change the board, membership, which is a change, to be fair. To add the rec director but not a commissioner, but I wouldn't wanna do that without establishing an ad hoc committee first, precisely to define the plan. Cause then I think will be essentially the same, if we don't do that strategic planning up front.
So are we doing the ordinance first?
Well,
or are we doing
what
committee
I'm
first?
saying is that my opinion about the ordinance is contingent upon whether or not we have an ad hoc committee.
So you wanna do the committee first and then go?
Well, I want to do them simultaneously. What I want to say is that in my opinion about whether or not the ordinance is sufficient change to the current structure is connected to the existence of a planning committee. So I'm comfortable amending the ordinance simply to add the rec director and not a commissioner, as long as we also decide we're gonna have an ad hoc committee.
Amend the original ordinance that I wrote, or amend the revised ordinance that was submitted by the rec board?
I suppose I'd have to see them side by side, but the revised one looks pretty good to me,
Okay,
with just removing the
That'll
paragraph
have to be,
B.
so be, well, there's also, you have to be, and then, I guess,
It would
C would
change
become the sixth.
Yeah,
member.
they'd change a couple numbers,
Yeah.
okay.
the quorum would change. So that's
Mr.
my,
Mayor,
yeah, go ahead.
another question. I understand the need to maybe restructure things to make this more efficient, but can we accomplish the same thing with the rec board by doing work sessions like we did last week or last meeting? Because, I mean, right here in the ordinance, it specifically states that the advisory board, one of their jobs is to get projected plan for development of city parks and recreation, which kind of sounds like a plan that we're trying to get together right now. So, I don't know how we're saying that it's above their capacity when it's actually right there in the ordinance.
And Chuck, if I could add one thing to yours, if you don't mind.
And I'm not trying to be belligerent, by the way.
No. Can I piggyback something off of that?
Sure.
And I agree with Chuck, and I agree with the board and what they said. And they said, while there is value in having a commissioner on the advisory board should be able to fully function independently of the commission or a member of that commission. Now, then they went on to say, therefore, a commissioner is not eligible to choose a chairman. But what they said is absolutely correct. They should be able to fully function independently of the commission or a member of that commission. And if that means, you know, they gotta come together, do their thing, come up with their ideas, and I wouldn't be opposed to work sessions, we have an additional work session. And I'm not necessarily 100% opposed to the committee idea, Matt, either, but I think that they are capable. I do believe they're capable of coming up with some ideas and plans. And I don't wanna see us back here 6 months from now, a year from now, saying, you know, we got nothing done. I wanna get something done.
I think to answer your question, Chuck, about why, because I pointed that passage out the last meeting, that in the description of the board, it already says they should be doing strategic planning. And I think that the reason that we're saying why they're not capable is because we haven't had it yet. But that doesn't mean that they're not, but I think this is Francis's point. The process as it is set up now has not produced the intended result, regardless of what the ordinance says. So some change seems reasonable. I think a temporary change makes the most sense, because to do the major planning, because you kickstart the process, and then we have this slightly revised structure moving forward. And if we want to have work sessions, okay, but that sort of sounds like expanding the board, which is what you're saying you don't want to do. And with all the commissioners,
I
rather
don't
than just
agree.
what?
I don't think it's expanding the board at all. I think
Well,
it's
I
just
said
them
it
coming
sort of
with-
sounds like it, because you want to have the
Meeting with us.
commissioners directly involved in the thought process. So I
revised ordinance,
Well,
revised.
we have to vote on that first, but that's where that's going. A revised ordinance to change the rec advisory board to add the,
One rec
the
director.
director, so one member, the director, a vote, one of the directors is, that would be a voting member. The other action that I would like you to take is to draft an ordinance to establish an ad hoc committee for the specific, okay, resolution, for the specific purposes of developing a master plan.
Okay,
Those are the actions I would like.
okay.
But I'm 1 out of 5.
No, I'm perfectly fine with that, Mr. Mayor, and your resolution, write it up, bring it before us, and let's see where it goes. But yeah, I'm for it.
And so at which point, now, do I have to take a motion on the
Now, if there's a
ordinance? 'Cause it's
consensus to
already-
have staff bring us back, we're not actually approving anything other than us doing a bit of legwork. for
In
it.
the ordinance, because the ordinance is already approved and we're still working on it.
Yeah, so it's never been published, so it isn't law, but, we left it with, I was gonna have it reviewed by the city attorney, but there was immediate concern about it, so I never even sent it over to him, I don't think. I talked to him about it, but, so I have 2 items here I think I can come up with, by the next meeting, but I did have a question for a regular, okay, if part of the rec board's job is to evaluate the current program, would you like to set up some sort of meeting with the current rec directors and maybe the previous rec directors and start that process to see, get some feedback going on
That's what we did in our meeting that we had just last Sunday.
And so there's supposed to be a written report, presented to the board, so I didn't go through the minutes, was that in the minutes, is that evaluated the current? That's what
That
I'd
was
like
our
to see
plan, I don't know
documented,
if it's in the minutes.
that's what I'd like to see documented is,
Right, okay.
you know, if there's, so we were notified of the meeting just a little bit late, so we didn't make it, Bob, I just tell Bob about it. But, it would be it would be nice to have that and have Bob present, so if there's any kind of, issues with the facilities that we can take care of without major, expense.
Mhm.
So I'm done, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, so do we have a consensus to amend the ordinance as we discussed to leave a commissioner off but add the rec director?
Yes.
Consensus means no objections. Is there consensus?
There can't be any objections?
Well, I think it means without objection. I looked it up not too long ago, because we use it a lot, and I think it means no objections. And if there are objections, I should just suggest you take a vote.
No.
Okay, do we have 1 objection?
It's just let it roll. Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
we have a consensus,
Okay.
but we also have a consensus for you to draft up that resolution for the ad hoc.
I have the revised ordinance,
Yes.
and then come up with a concept. There was a citizens advisory committee some years ago that was established, and I don't know if it's.
Well, I'm okay with that, but I don't know if you've asked for, if everyone's okay with that. I mean, maybe you should, just for the record.
So that we can take staff action, we have a
Yes.
consensus to draw up that resolution.
No objection.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Chair.
And Mr.
Well,
Mark.
yes, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
We,
Appreciate it, man.
what we could do is talk about something, we hope somewhat less controversial. Chip and seal?
Oh, absolutely. That's,
The Ambrose.
On roads and where? So, yeah, so, this is time of the year where I'm thinking about our summer chip and seal program. Last couple of years, well, more than a couple of years, we've had issues with our oil distributor. Been in and out of the shop. Cost of money, we thought about the idea of hiring out our chip and sealer. I think it's gonna have to come to that sooner or later. And, however, we had it in the shop last year and got it back. It was working properly. Then we had storms, we had 2 storms, personnel issues and stuff. So we're behind last year and the year before, because we broke down in mid-season. So, I just wanna see what you guys think we should do. back and see how much we spend just on oil and aggregate, about 50,000 a year. You know, I couldn't really get down to the drill and brass, you know, fuel, stuff.
And I can't remember, do you know how much did you price out at one point, how much it would cost to,
For a new truck.
well, to hire
No,
it
to
out?
hire.
Yeah, it was like 50%, I think,
I remember, I thought it was sizable, and I remember they said that it made sense to do it ourselves, whatever, but, um,
What about a combination? Some of it ourselves, some of it.
Yeah, I'd like to, that was an idea I thought too, because I'd like to keep the oil truck, we're not gonna get much out of it, but there's some things that we maybe use it for, you know, like some alleys, and we do a tear out of some blocks, you know, we've been doing that recently, we'll replace all the base, and then put millions on top of that, 5-6 inches, and then chip and seal it with Second Street from Dr. Carroll's down to Apache, Lynn Street, Elm Street, and there's a couple others I'd like to do too. I mean, I don't know, it's just the new truck, they said you'd be lucky if you found one that's under $250,000, so. And then
New or used?
new. And this year is our rubber tire roller, part of that process is due for replacement, it's a 98. However, it's running fine, works good, we don't put a lot of hours on it in the year, but it's gonna get, like something too, there's another $78,000.
So it costs us $50,000 just to do it, equipment
No equipment,
not included, but
no fuel.
That was last year's 50 grand.
Well, it's the average for the last 5 years.
So you haven't priced it out for this year, for this coming year.
No.
this is just an introduction to this
Yeah.
process.
well, I guess, are you able to, with the equipment that we currently have, are you able to do it this year? You think?
If everything works out.
We're just not sure yet that it's gonna work, okay.
But this is here in February, when I usually order the aggregate, because they said a few years ago, you should get that early because it goes quick, you know. They're usually delivering at the end of February, first part of March, so we have it all stockpiled. But even if we went with with a contractor to do the work, we would order that anyway, so we have it here, yeah.
So we'd have to prep roads, we'd have to have the oil.
No, they would come in with their tankers and stuff, and they try to do about a third of the town a year, and they could do it 1 or 2 days. It takes us like 6 to 8 weeks to do what we do.
You'd still have to spend time prepping,
Oh, yeah.
so it wouldn't just be a 2-day process, and for them it'd be a 2-day, how would it be for us? How many-
Oh, it would to go through and do all the patchwork, it would take, all spring, yeah, April, May.
It's gonna take you all spring up in Lakeview.
Yeah.
No.
You would be doing that anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like we would have some cost savings in terms of man hours worked.
Well, yeah.
So for today, what are we,
Do you need more information, what information do
I'd
you
like
need?
to know, get some prices on outside, work, how much it costs outside, and get some updated prices on oil, asphalt.
And then you can do a comparison of what it would cost if our machine held together, and just so we see the difference of that, but yeah.
Do we have a newer truck planned out in the 10-year, or?
Oh, yeah, well, it was supposed to be 20 years, but that was in, it's a 99, the truck we have now, so it was a 19.
Just wondering if we contract it out, we won't have to.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have to plan for a new truck for future.
Right.
What we have in there would be a line item in there going towards the chip and seal expense as opposed to vehicle expense. And
That would free up some
could.
But
It
do we
just-
have a line item now? Do we have any money encumbered? in
Bob
Q3?
uses the equipment line item in his budget to buy big purchases. This would be $250,000, so I probably wouldn't be able to buy it in 1 year. We'd probably have to do a lease purchase or find out some other way to make it happen. But it's a trade-off. You're gonna spend,
What's the annual number that you got there?
is it 80,000,
75 is what we
75?
budget for equipment.
Yeah, it's his line item, 80, 10, whatever it is. And so you're gonna come back the next meeting with firmer figures and, was there something else?
Anything else anyone wants to see?
Bring the oil truck, we'll take a ride and.
Slow ride. All right, thanks, Bob.
Very good.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, next item is the flooring, library flooring. You're still up for that one, Bob?
Well, yeah, so we met with a flooring contractor here at City Hall last week. I think it was Friday, Thursday, Friday. He gave us an estimate, and there was some unknowns about the underneath the carpet, if there was tile, no tile, concrete, the glue, the hooks and shafts, and moving all that out. But anyway, he wrote up an estimate. And then the library folks would like to, they wanted to include bathrooms, which they needed, they're old, little in. So they want to replace that with tile, but I don't know, we could maybe split that up. Just carpet one year and then the bathroom and the kitchen the next year, or maybe get the library folks, they talked about maybe getting a grant or participating in part of it.
Well, I have a question, and I want to preface it by saying I am not trying to bring up the debate discussion we had a couple of years ago, but when is that building gonna be outlive its usefulness? Or, you know, I mean, how long do we have before we're looking at, you know, major structural issues or, I mean, it's old.
Yeah, well,
It seems like we're putting a lot of money into it every year.
yeah. I'm aware of any structural issues.
Okay. As long as just keep pumping them, you still have to keep pumping a lot of money into it every year.
Updates, yeah.
So,
Where are the, I'm not,
let's not mention any numbers.
yeah, I'm just wondering, where does it split out, the kitchen?
It doesn't, Bob identified the cost.
I see it comes up to like $9,900.
Okay, so we,
And Chuck, why don't you explain that out loud so I understand it as well?
Oh, so the second line, or
you
it
don't
says
want us to talk about numbers?
Mohawk.
Oh,
He doesn't want to.
You
No, I'm not talking
Well,
about
I'm not sure if you
numbers,
should.
I'm just,
Okay, that's fine.
oh, I thought
If
you
you're
were
gonna put
asking
this up
for.
for a bid,
oh,
and
okay.
I've got,
I was just
I-
wondering
so
what
the purpose of
I
this,
see what you're saying.
portion.
so the purpose of this quote, in my opinion, was to see what needed to be done, and then get just a ballpark cost to see, if it was even realistic in doing it. Because if it came back, you know, 3 times that quote, well, obviously that wasn't realistic. If it comes back at this quote, and you can split off the kitchen and the bathrooms for a year later, then, it, you know, and if there's any support from the system or any grants or anything like that, then it makes it a little easier to do.
Yeah, and two things come to my mind immediately. First of all, by the general numbers, if this is anywhere near accurate, if you filter out the
Kitchens and
bathroom,
bathroom.
kitchen, then it's kind of what Maurice was guessing it might be, which he kind of already put into the countywide sales tax, so we kind of have accounted for that. That's point
But remember
number one.
that when we do the audit.
Yes. But the bigger concern is, so this is 6,500 times 2, basically, for 2 HVACs the last 2 years.
No, they were 8,900,
Okay,
and then
so-
we had $1,100 crane.
All right, and now a lot more. And I'm looking at $650 a month
Correct, so, Chuck has looked at the other library buildings from the system, gave square footages and estimates. Now, if you're asking, if you wanna alter the rent, well, they wanna know as soon as possible, they brought that up.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't wanna be unreasonable, but this is significant. I mean, it's
Sure.
complete, we're really losing a lot of money on this building.
That's why I asked the question.
And so,
I would say if you break off the kitchen and the bathroom projects,
well, that's one way to make it affordable, but if we're not putting more.
Still gonna
money
have to do it
into
eventually.
I think so, yes.
The kitchen and bathroom aren't going anywhere.
So, did you, Francis,
Mr. Mayor, just, so I think we have kind of a general understanding of the dollar amount we might be looking at. We do have, you know, the Conway Sales Tax Fund. Got some question marks on that fund this coming year because of the CPLIP cost and a few other things. Maybe a good idea is to, now that we know the numbers and table this for a few months, come back to it once we kind of see how the Conway sales tax and the city sales tax are coming in this year. And then we'll have a better understanding of our financial situation, kind of late spring type timeframe.
yeah.
I think that was kind of the goal, is let's just get a general idea of the costs, where you might be looking at, and it gives us something to discuss later on.
Yeah, I agree. I think some cost is unavoidable, but what's also the challenge is this is competing directly with, say, park and recreation improvements and the roads. This is the same pot of money we're talking about, and that, the way this is, we're getting to something like a year's worth of chip and seal, you know.
I'm not opposed to looking at it later on, but I think, I think we do have to look at, the square footage of the building. Chuck, I'll let you address it. I mean, that was and I agree with what you, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'd like a little bit more time to finalize that,
Okay.
especially since we just got the,
Yeah.
Mike, I can't hear through the microphone, you got one for even working,
can you hear me now?
something's wrong. I apologize for that.
This one? Oh, no. Well, so just to, I've done some comps and I'm not ready to, I think I'll be a bit more prepared
Okay,
next week, but I think it's not a bad idea because they've asked in advance if there is gonna be an increase that they know as soon as possible.
I would throw out, we'll have to probably have some little look, there may need to be some temporary fixes done to some of the carpet, if rugs aren't gonna suffice, and if it's gonna be a issue. I did not go look at the carpet. The librarian seemed to think there might have been some safety issues with some of it, and we'll double check that and come back. Okay, I don't wanna overlook that part of it.
All right, so we'll defer that, and when we talk about it, make sure we get Chuck's.
Thank you.
Also, what is, or do we need to apply for a grant, or I mean, not apply for a grant, but has that question been asked with
So
Nancy Powell?
previously, we discussed if there's any funding available, we was gonna look into that. So there's still that option, and they got a couple months apparently to, come back and let us know.
All right, thanks, Bob. Thanks for all this money you wanna spend today. Speaking of rates, the 2025 electrical rates, Francis did some work, but I gotta just let you run the room.
Mr. Mayor, so I think Maurice emailed out today a summary of the electric rate discussion for 2025. So this is similar to a summary I put together last year about this time, and looking back, it was the second meeting of February when I believe we finalized the decision on the rates for the electric department. So I went through the spreadsheet that Maurice emailed out, which determines the recommended rate. And there's a lot of variables in it. taking it year to year, there's a couple interesting things. We actually sold fewer kilowatt hours in 2024 than what we sold in 2023. And some of that change most of that change, I believe, was in the large commercial customers. There's a slight reduction in their use. And so because we sold fewer kilowatt hours in 2024 than 2023, when we do the rate figuring, we're dividing by a smaller number, which means we have to cover the costs with lower volume. And so that does bring up the kilowatt hour charge recommendation a little bit more than expected. The other aspect is in the past, we have had a decent carryover balance, and the capital improvement projects were kind of absorbed into the regular budget line item, distribution maintenance item, plus the carryover. So in past electric rate discussions, the capital improvement add to the rate was 0 cents. And because of our carryover being a little bit lower than years past, and because of the anticipated substation project this year, there is a little bit of an add for the capital investment or capital improvement rate adjustment. So with both of those as kind of, I think, the main influencers on the rate increase, the formula produces a request for about a 24% increase, which, looking through the years, we underestimate revenue, overestimate costs, so there's always been a little bit of flexibility there. And in the past, we've kind of tried to, a few times, we have split the difference of what the rate says the rate, or the formula says the rate should be, and the current rates. And so that's what we did last year as well. We had a suggested rate, and then we ended up doing half of the increase that was recommended. And looking at our carryover balance of about $333,000, looking at our projected expenditures, which are, according to the budget, somewhere around $2.6 billion. Last year's revenue was just under 2.4 million. And if we split the difference, you just go up to 12%, to a 12% increase, I believe that would bring in about $250,000 more than last year's revenue, which would essentially be around $2.65 million, which brings in just a little bit more than what we're estimating spending. So that was kind of my summary. Is we have the formula has a large increase recommendation. I think if we went halfway, we'd still have a decent carryover balance and take care of all of our needs. And also, I would anticipate our usage, the kilowatt hours that we would sell in 2025 would be higher than 2024. I think it was just it was an odd thing to go down in usage. I don't remember that happening in the past. So possibly, I think we would need to take a look month by month on the kilowatt hours sold month by month in order to understand better why we sold less kilowatt hours in 2024 than 2023.
A lot of it's driven by the weather. I mean, if it's if you're thinking it's industrial, that's less likely to be driven by the weather, but it's still part of it. If you have a cool summer, you're not gonna have the air conditioner on as much, and that's gonna degrade some, and use less water. I mean, there's various factors like that.
So that's it, Mr. Mayor. It's my quick little summary of it. It's based on the spreadsheet Grace emailed out. And the formula basically recommends a 24% increase. I think that's a little bit too much. I think we would be able to take care of all the needs with the 12%. And also, I think it's important to note that the 12% is partially due to the increased costs from the KPP. It takes that into consideration, and so we absorb the price increases from the KPP, so that moving forward, the monthly energy cost adjustment remains minimal. If we don't absorb the increased cost from the KPP, then the monthly energy cost adjustment continues to be a very large percentage of the bill.
So you're asking for consensus to do the 12% and come back to the resolution at the next meeting?
That would be my recommendation.
I like this precisely because we're accounting for the capital improvement and we're still, and I would like to, can't predict. I agree with you, it would be weird if we went down again in usage, so that carryover will probably actually be a little bit. We're already above, with this projection at 12%, we're already above where we ended up this year. So it seems like a reasonable enough cushion. And that 24% increase doesn't strike me as immediately palatable for the consumer, including myself. So I like that solution. That's probably actually going to be a bigger carryover, I mean. Any other comments on that?
I'm just curious, did you look at half of that? If demand went back to 23 levels, 24 levels, 23. The year before it did. And if we had the same production, for this year. I know costs have gone up, so in a way we will probably have to, but I'm just wondering if we looked at like half of half.
Well, but the capital improvement requirements are going to continue in the out years, so I don't see a disadvantage to having some decent carryover.
No, yeah, I think carryover is good. I'm just wondering if we modeled out, and I'm happy to take a look as well, but if we modeled out the demand coming back to this year, to the previous years before it dipped, could we get away with like 6% instead of 12? I'm just curious how to mitigate any immediate rate hikes, but just something I'd maybe like to look at personally, unless you already did that.
So 2 more agenda items. I can run those numbers pretty quick. I have the spreadsheet pulled up. So if we can pause this, if you're comfortable doing that.
It's fine, we can come back
Run
to
that.
so quick we can get things by while Francis is paying attention. Let's go back to the previous order.
No, we're pausing this.
We're gonna move on to, so we're gonna keep, the electric rates open, and I'll come back. Well, this one's, I think, non-controversial. Item E, CMB license for, because we didn't do one for B and B, and now they've applied for the year,
Oh, yeah.
so. We don't,
We have to make a motion to
We do need to
approve,
make a
pass the background test,
It's for B&B.
yeah, and pay the fee. So,
I'll entertain a motion to approve the CMB license for B and B.
So moved.
Have
I second.
a motion, a second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So yes. Approved. And then, well, item box drop work session, is this really just a discussion?
Brooke Steiner with Carson Wilson, our broker, would like to have a work session to discuss the city's insurance. She's March 4th, 6 o'clock is the time, thought we before the regular meeting. So if there's a consensus, shall we say, to set that up, I'll let her know.
No strenuous objection. I think that is Mardi Gras, by the way.
It is.
Doesn't really matter, we'll have a king cake.
So, March,
I might
You
not-
guys okay
Mr.
with
Mayor, I might not be here,
Work
but
session on the 4th.
sure. I might not be here, Mr. Mayor, but I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, you're
you're still in favor of it.
back here, find yourself strikingly in agreement with that. Yes, so,
And we may be ready to revisit.
so we can revisit electoral rates maybe.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, I think, if I recall correctly, we're at about a 2% fewer kilowatt hours sold in 2024 than 2023. And I think it's roughly, I think, all the drivers on that 2% less. We're looking at a 12% potential price increase now. That would bring us down to 10% price increase, assuming that our sales of kilowatt hour would jump back up to 2023 levels.
Yeah.
And I think, why the 10% price increase, I think part of that is the capital improvement ad. That would have probably, if that wasn't part of it, that would have dropped it down, probably down to closer to the 5-6% price increase. But, so it's quick math, but I think it's about if we were to anticipate 2023 levels of kilowatt hours sold, then we can still hit those 12% numbers, the numbers produced by 12% price increase with a 10% price increase.
We have we not, at the end of the year, reduced charges if we find ourselves ahead?
There's been
Not the rate, but just not.
there's been 2 times that I recall in the past that the carryover balance was very good in the electric fund, and we, I think, reduced the rate completely one month, and then I think we reduced the rate to 50% another month.
So see, that's another, good, taking a little bit of a risk, assuming something. Whereas if we want to readjust, that's another option. And then for a 2% change,
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I can't hear when you're
Oh.
raising this, so either maybe turn on your microphone or if they're not.
Microphone, I don't think.
I apologize, I have
Yeah.
a hard time.
all I
hearing
was
out of
saying
here.
was, if we wanted to reduce, I mean, a 12% increase is certainly more palatable, I think, than a 24% increase. If we want to make an assumption that our demand's gonna go up a little bit, we could cut another 2% off, but we're taking a little bit of a risk, so I would be more comfortable going with the recommended 12%. And if we find that the carryover is more than we anticipated toward the end of the year, we could just cut the rates at the end of the year. That's what I would prefer to do.
I mean, yeah, no, that's a fair point. I guess if it's driven mostly by commercial, what we think, where was it? Decrease by commercial. Is that, we've had a couple restaurants open up. I mean, are we, was it that we had some vacant buildings that weren't using and now they will be, and is it,
Except that one closed. It's gonna,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm just wondering, like, is it as simple as that, as we had vacant, like, commercial buildings that just weren't in use and now they will be in use? And we
Well, a
should-
couple of them, I believe, just reduced their kilowatt hour consumption because there's in the code, it's if you're above 45,000 and below, I believe a couple of them dropped below that. And so they didn't close, they weren't idle, it's just that they used less power for whatever reason.
It just seems strange that we would, seems like everything's demanding more energy these days. It seems
Well, we
strange
could go
that we
back-
have a year drop.
The last 3 or 4 years and to see what it is. And I tell you, it's that way when you try to calculate water consumption and that sort of stuff, because hot summer, or big water trees in the fall, I mean, there's just all kinds of scenarios. A lot of it's weather driven, but I can't answer it, it's never, it's unknowable. Some of
I mean, the 12% is sure the safer route, but I'm just, you know, if we think there's a real
Well,
possibility
so-
that it gets backed up.
There's 250,000 in that substation where that amount isn't here. And that digger truck, he has that for 2026, but it can't be certified anymore now. And it's one of these things that has a year lead time, so you have to order it. And so the budget authority will get charged to 1 year, and then the cash will be charged to another year. So I think you're safe in, hedging your bets on this, and that sort of stuff, so. Electrical vehicles can only be certified for a certain number of years. Now, you can use them for other purposes and sell them to farmers or private people, but you just can't do electrical work with that. And that's our main truck, it's our digger truck, so.
So we need just a consensus on this, or what are we looking for?
Well, you need to have, whatever you want to have come back to the next meeting, you have to, because we have to do it by resolution.
Okay. I like the 12%. I don't like the 24%. And I think that 12% is the safer, more prudent way to go. Make adjustments if we need to in the end.
It's fine.
So we have a consensus for that.
All right. Thank you.
Just mandate that all the businesses use electric vehicles. Just kidding, yeah.
All right. Any reports?
I do. Bob, do you have anything to report? We should set up a meeting with the library folks as a follow-up tonight, see if he has time. Lakeview Lift Station, Jordan had asked the status of that. Pat Cox will be, or someone from BT will be here the next meeting to give a cost estimate for that lift station. Water Project 1A was approved last year. Tailgate meeting coming up February 11th. We do have things rolling with that TEAP. That was awarded to WSP because they could do it sooner. They expect to do their work, they expect to do their, they expect to start work in early February. The speed study, that contract, we don't have the contract signed yet, they're working on it. They believe they'll start late April, early part of May. And of course, the 18th is the field work for the audit. Now, we've had the same accounting software for a number of years, and we've had custom additions made to it because of the way we bill for sewer and all sort of stuff. But that aside, they doubled their price, in some cities they tripled their price. They're trying to force us to go to the cloud, their call centers maybe could be better. We're just gonna set up a meeting or two with some of these other alternatives just to see what's out there. I'm not sure how realistic it is to switch, just because of the cost. Did you send a quarter double? Well, yeah, because we have to pay an annual maintenance fee. We recently had that there.